Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media.
I try to bring humor to the table, especially the days we're living in right now. We need a good laugh.
The thing I'm interested in terms of literature is the cultural and historical context.
I truly hope that I can inspire as many kids as possible.
Today on Spotlight, murals bringing beauty to vacant buildings. Plus, art made from remnants of what's been left behind. And then, researchers give new hope of slowing the course of Alzheimer's disease. But first, a crime writer talks about his latest thriller and a storyline you might recognize. It's Sunday, and you're watching the Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Ripped straight from recent headlines comes Robert B. Parker's Someone to Watch Over Me, which is the latest thriller novel in his popular detective series. Serious Parker fans will recall the 1980s TV series Spencer for Hire, featuring actor Robert Urich, based on Parker's novels. Parker passed away in 2010, but his iconic Boston private eye, Spencer, lives on in the books written by fellow author Ace Atkins, as a request by Parker's wife, Joan.
I was already an established crime writer on my own. She said, let me send you some of Bob's books and you can kind of get familiar. And I said, I am a lifelong Robert B. Parker fan. I am a Spencer fanatic. I said, let me get started today.
10 years later, Atkins continues writing the Spencer series, with one becoming a movie called Spencer Confidential, featuring actor Mark Wahlberg, loosely based on Atkins' novel Wonderland.
Spencer, this is Hawk.
As with every Parker novel, Atkins retains the crisp and crusty exchanges between Spencer and his sidekick, Hawk, the mutual devotion the PI shares with his true love, Susan Silverman, and Spencer's special blend of doing the right thing with a smart, wisecracking attitude.
They thought part of the success was keeping the stories contemporary and keeping Spencer a contemporary character. But other than that, I think they've been really wonderful about trusting me with this legacy.
Spencer's latest case in Someone to Watch Over Me includes his resourceful young protege, Maddie Sullivan, who recruits him to help destroy a sex ring full of powerful big shots convinced they're above the law. The storyline may sound familiar.
Were billionaire Jeffrey Epstein and accused pedophile who was found dead in prison, and his ex-girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell, were they the inspiration for this storyline?
Of course. The Epstein story just got larger and larger, and the way it was connected with power brokers and the way that this guy was able to operate with cases being thrown out and with police actually being harassed for trying to make a case against this man. It was too much of a story that I had to pass up.
Each year, the former newspaper crime reporter writes a novel of his own, adding to his nearly 24 published books, and one Robert B. Parker Spencer novel. Atkins says he wanted to be a crime novelist since he was a teen, when he cracked open his first Parker book.
What made the Parker books different, it's really the humor. And I always knew anytime that I was going to pick up a Parker book when I was going to read a Spencer novel, that I was going to have fun. It was going to make me laugh. And there was a good story that was going to be driving things. But I think that's what sets him apart from the other. That's what I've learned as a novelist, and something I do in my other books, is I try to bring humor to the table. And especially the days we're living in right now, we need a good laugh.
Isn't that the truth? That's so true. Tell us who Robert B. Parker was and how it came to be that now you're writing, continuing his work.
Sure. Parker was one of my heroes. When I got into the kind of books that I wanted to write, and then I really wanted to become an author, he was one of my main inspirations. I loved his work. He created, of course, the Spencer character that's been around as long as pretty much I've been alive. I think the first book was published in 1972. And as a young person, as a teenager, I loved these books about a kind of a smart aleck private detective in Boston, his adventures. They have a very literary style to them, and I just thought they were fantastic. I thought they were very funny. I thought the humor set Mr. Parker's work apart from everything, and that's the kind of books I wanted to write as a young person, what I wanted to get into. So when Mr. Parker passed away in 2010, it became known shortly after that his family, in particular his wife Joan, wanted to keep Spencer going in some of his other creations. And I was fortunate enough to have been chosen by Joan Parker, who later became a wonderful friend, and some family members from the Parker that are part of the Parker estate. And I've been doing it now for almost 10 years.
Does the estate have the right for like a final edit?
They do, but they've been really great. Joan passed away a few years ago, and she was a wonderful friend and a champion of my work, and somebody that I bounced ideas off of, and someone who really helped me understand the character of Spencer more than just being a fan, but really to understand it the way that her husband did. But they trust me to do this, and so it really has been a wonderful relationship for the last 10 years, keeping Spencer going. I think there were some kind of parameters. Really, the only thing that was expressed to me was to keep Spencer contemporary. At first, I had the idea to kind of go back to the 70s or the 80s and write at the period that was really the zenith of Bob's writing. But they thought part of the success was keeping the stories contemporary and keeping Spencer a contemporary character. But other than that, I think they've been really wonderful about trusting me with this legacy.
Scan the QR code on your screen with your phone's camera to watch the full interview and find out his sports connection to St. Louis and the advice he gives to young writers. Follow HEC Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
HEC Media and the St. Louis County Library have teamed up to bring you interactive virtual author events every week on Facebook and hecmedia.org.
We have been so thrilled to get to partner with HEC Media on these virtual author events. COVID just makes everything super complicated, and during this time we were able to really pivot so quickly to bring these great author programs to the St. Louis community and beyond. We have people from all over the world really watching our programs, and we know that while we would love to host them in person, that this is a really great option for people, and in some cases more accessible for many.
Get to know award-winning novelists like Chris Bojalian.
Peter observed that New York City is an extremely worrisome possible ground zero for a pandemic. High population density, people depending on mass transportation, and lots of people coming and going.
Nationally best-selling suspense authors like Jeffrey Deaver.
Death is a very, very big thing. We cannot treat it cavalierly. And I see in so many, particularly on television, so many adventure shows, people are machine gunned down. Nobody blinks about it. There's no remorse. There are no consequences. And that's not the way it should be. It has to have an emotional impact. And that requires a lot more writing.
And acclaimed historians and journalists like Wes Moore.
Oftentimes people think racism is an act. Right? It's like, this person did X, therefore that is racism. You know, this person uses the N-word, that is racist. This person goes to Klan rallies, that is racist. Yes, however, racism isn't an act. Racism is a system. Racism is a system that permeates every system.
Our virtual author series is unlike any other author series in the nation, spanning genres and topics, and produced by Emmy Award-winning HEC Media. Follow us on Facebook. Or go to hecmedia.org to watch all author events.
HEC Media presents Talking with Authors, the podcast. Your favorite writers and genres, with diverse subjects and styles, with new podcasts dropping bi-weekly. Subscribe to Talking with Authors, wherever you get your podcasts.
Better Family Life, we're a nonprofit community development organization founded in 1983. The central theme is building and maintaining strong families. It's through our vision of redoing Page Boulevard that we saw vacant and abandoned properties. And we understood that these serve as eyesores, and it draws on the esteem of the community. We said, why not take these eyesores and turn them into sources of motivation and pride?
My name is Devin Alexander, professional fighter from North St. Louis. Been boxing since I was 7 years old. Here it is, 18, 19 years later. I have a mural of me in the background, which is amazing because I was a child who grew up with nothing, absolutely nothing. A lot of people where I'm from, they don't think they can make it, and I truly hope that I can inspire as many kids as possible. Each kid that lives in the inner city, I know what it's like, and I want to be a perfect example that you can make it no matter what the obstacles are. You can make it.
When we came up with the Beyond the Walls mural project, we knew that we had to have artists who are from North St. Louis, who understand North St. Louis, and who have a very strong connection to the neighborhoods.
I was involved with art at an early age, drawing, pastels, pencils, crayons, watercolors. Actually getting started with the cartoon characters, comic book. Pretty good with hands-on. This project started Beyond the Walls 2007. This is a 13-block, 15-block project. There's about maybe 50 paintings or more. These dignitaries are people from same neighborhoods or bad neighborhoods in the community. And the ideal is to bring attention to a derelict building, a blighted out building with positive images. Jackie Joyner, Demetrius Johnson, and Dick Gregory, activist, comedian, outstanding in the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King in the 60s. I think this project would really be a great educational piece and experience for the youngsters, say school age-wise, elementary school, even high school. Take a trip, a field trip, park the bus, school bus, get out and then view these outstanding individuals and do a research, find out and learn something about these people to furthermore inspire the children, the kids, and give them that mindset where I'm gonna be one of those persons. I'm gonna make it.
And in the process of me going to school, I ended up getting shot in a drive-by shooting with one of my brothers. Actually, a street not far from her, not even a mile from her. At the same time, I was still just going through the young teenage stage. Got locked up, did 3 years in prison for a robbery that I didn't even commit, but I got exonerated on that back in 2014, and just got my life back. I'm happy and I'm grateful, and I'm back, standing firm, better than I was before, actually. Job Corp really just started honing in on my skills and on my talents, on my artistic skills, and they gave me this project with Better Family Life to paint these pictures on these abandoned buildings because our neighborhoods are devastated. My art, it's a way for me to express myself. It's really good to be able to express yourself growing up in a community where, it's not so safe to play outside or where it's not so safe to go to the park. So I take my perspective of what I see in my mind, what I see in my soul, and I project it through art. So this piece right here, it says safety first, and it just represents how many children die in St. Louis. Like, it's devastating. So I'm hoping that maybe with my art, a police officer or a little kid going to school, it's like a stop sign. It's just for them to see, for them to be aware of what's going on in their community. I use my art as kind of like signs and symbols. I want to put meaning in them. I just kind of let it come from the soul. It's kind of like water. It just flows. It's kind of like rapping if you know how to rap, or music if you know how to sing. That's what art is to me. It's how it feels when I'm doing it.
I have talked to several people who thank us because the vacant boarded up building was right next door to them. You can see positive images and uplifting images where at first you saw a drain. Even on a sunny day, there's a cloud over that building. Now the buildings are radiant and just a source of inspiration for everybody.
Later, we spotlight one of our Emmy-winning stories about cooking.
The first show of 2021 at Art St. Louis is called Remnants, and it's a multimedia exhibition, so it has artworks in just about every media. And the overall theme, Remnants, basically refers to a couple things. Artworks that are made of remnants or leftovers, things that were left behind, as well as the conceptual idea of what a remnant is and all of the kinds of interpretations that could mean to someone, being leftover materials or being left behind as a remnant. Those are kind of the direct things that we sought from St. Louis regional artists for this juried exhibit. And as always with exhibits that are open to the regional artists, we want artists to interpret our themes as widely as we describe them. There are 53 artworks by 47 artists from Missouri and Illinois, and every individual artwork is unique, original, and interprets this idea of remnants in their own special way that comes together as this new conversation. You look at artworks that are also made from parts of maybe other artworks that were created before by the artist and collaged together, or mixed media where an artist has used mirrors and text and paint on canvas, so remnants of other materials, as well as the objects, items, materials that we leave behind and might use as scraps to then create something new. And I think that that really speaks to what the human experience really is, especially now, how we are working so hard to survive as well as kind of reinvent ourselves, or at least reinvent how we are able to participate in the world at large. So Remnants was at the top of my list for the first show that I wanted to present for 2021 for so many reasons, including the political climate, as well as what we were trying to rebuild with our lives as we hopefully surface on the other side of this pandemic. So you'll see a lot of responses to different things, but very timely things relating to the world as we now know it. So the Remnants exhibition is on view at Art St. Louis from January 16th through February 17th, 2021. And Art St. Louis is located in downtown St. Louis at 1223 Pine Street. And you can find everything you ever need to know about Art St. Louis on our website, which is artstlouis.org.
HEC Media, supporting and promoting the arts. Check out our features and shows on theater, dance, music, the visual arts, and more. Find this and all our award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
Circadian Rhythm. It's the natural process that helps control your daily schedule for sleep and wakefulness. It regulates the sleep-wake cycle, repeating itself on each rotation of the Earth, roughly every 24 hours. For people with Alzheimer's disease, fractured sleep, daytime sleepiness, and other signs of disturbance in circadian rhythm are common complaints.
A lot of patients that have Alzheimer's, their sleep-wake cycle breaks down. They tend to sleep more during the day, to be awake more at night. Some of them are confused about day versus night. And there's plenty of data showing that the circadian clock, for some reason, is not working properly in Alzheimer's. The circadian clock controls when we sleep. And if you don't sleep enough, you can accumulate this protein called amyloid beta in the brain that forms these amyloid plaques, which we think are kind of the first hallmark of Alzheimer's disease.
It only gets worse as the disease progresses. Dr. Eric Music's lab at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis discovered a clue as to why this happens. The associate professor of neurology says a protein called YKL40 is the link.
We happen to be looking at genes in the brain that are controlled by the circadian clock. And we found this particular gene that seemed to be strongly controlled by the circadian clock in the brain. The gene encodes a certain protein called YKL40, which our colleagues right down the hall in the Alzheimer's Center had been working on for many years in human spinal fluid, looking at things that change in patients with Alzheimer's disease. And YKL40 was one of these proteins. So we kind of made this connection that said, oh, this clock-controlled gene is actually also this Alzheimer's-related protein, and that's how the whole thing got started.
The protein, YKL40, is an Alzheimer's biomarker.
To investigate the role of what YKL40 is possibly doing in the disease, we took a mouse model of beta amyloidosis. So what that means is they get amyloid beta plaques in a similar way that humans get amyloid beta plaques. It's not exactly an Alzheimer's model, but it recreates one aspect of Alzheimer's disease, and which we think is one of the primary drivers of the disease. And so we took these mice and we deleted Chi3L1 gene, which means they don't create any YKL40 protein. And so when we take away YKL40, we found that those mice develop plaques at a slower rate.
The findings suggest the protein is a possible link between circadian rhythm dysfunction and Alzheimer's disease.
Having a broken clock may play some role in Alzheimer's disease. And so now we're taking that one step further to try to understand exactly how, the clock and different cell types in the brain is affecting these pathways that lead to Alzheimer's. You can detect these changes in the circadian rhythm of people with Alzheimer's disease very, very early in the disease, actually before they have any memory symptoms.
Now there's new hope that therapies targeting the protein may slow the course of Alzheimer's disease. For the full story on the study, go to our website, hecmedia.org.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
To think of African American cooking as simply a modern-day version of soul food is to think of a gumbo as simply a soup. Even while under slavery, black cooks created a distinctly American foodway, one that blends Southern cooking with European and Native American influences. Their talents earned them the respect of slave owners and employers, and that impact is felt still today. A book by Washington University professor Rafia Zafar examines the historic contributions of black chefs. Recipes for Respect is not a cookbook. Instead, it's an examination of the intersection of African American culture, history, and food.
It notes that she was awarded 2 medals for best pickles and sauces and best...
To Dr. Zafar, cookbooks are a form of literature. In them, she finds revelations about African American history, especially when the author is a former slave. For example, an orientation clause, the sentence that explains a recipe, reveals a lot about a cook's life beyond the kitchen.
I concluded to bring forward a book of my knowledge based on an experience of upwards of 35 years in the art of cooking.
That's what I love about cookbooks. You have to read between the lines.
Although Dr. Zafar's book is academic, she is a professor after all. It's peppered with characters who jump off the page. Many of the chefs she writes about were former slaves, like Abby Fisher, whose book, What Mrs. Fisher Knows About Old Southern Cooking, was published in 1881.
Abby Fisher was from the Deep South, ended up in San Francisco, where she's listed in directories as a pickle maker and a caterer. And she became well known for her expertise, the deliciousness of the things she made. And she had a group of well-off white San Francisco women who encouraged her to write a cookbook. There's no mention of her background. There's no mention of her race, only that she is someone who, she says in the introduction that she did not have the benefit of an education. And then there are only 3 recipes that either glancingly or about as explicitly as you can get refer to a life spent, if not literally in slavery, in a slave society. One for blackberry syrup, one for hoe cakes, and one for what she calls infant pap.
Take 1 pint of flour, sifted and tied up in a clean cloth securely tight.
And it's actually an incredible thing for a black woman in the South to say. Particularly if it was in slavery, that meant she wasn't separated from her children. If she was a woman of any sort in the 19th century, that she gave birth and raised that many children is also phenomenal, because the infant and maternal mortality rates in the 19th century were very, very high. So she's kind of bragging. It's a humble brag, but it's a real brag.
And there is Melinda Russell, whose 1866 pamphlet of recipes is the earliest known cookbook by an African American.
When you read her cookbook, she has a slave narrative, the story of her family prefacing her cookbook.
I was born in Washington County and raised in Greene County in the eastern part of Tennessee. My mother was a member of one of the first families set free by Mr. Noddy of Richmond.
Essentially saying we were slaves, and this is a good cookbook, because even by that point, the idea that there were black people who were in the kitchen and were sophisticated cooks, great cooks, was already starting to take hold of the American consciousness.
Former slave Rufus Estes was heralded for his fine cooking, enjoyed by royalty and heads of state on luxury Pullman cars. His cookbook was published in 1911 and includes an entire chapter on sauces. And with instructions that could be lifted from Downton Abbey, Butler Robert Roberts' 1827 book was a guide to proper hospitality in a well-to-do household.
When your cloth is perfectly even, then put round your plates, laying 4 at each side. Then put round your knives and forks, placing your knives at the right hand with the edge of the blade toward the...
He tells you how to polish silver, certain remedies like for hangover, but also just how to run a household correctly. And of course, the irony of this is that African Americans were at the time thought of as dirty and savage and all that. But it was a black man who wrote this hospitality book that at least one Confederate general had in his library.
A hangover remedy would have been particularly helpful after one of Tom Bullock's concoctions. He worked at the St. Louis Country Club as a mixologist in the years before Prohibition. In the foreword to the book, The Ideal Bartender, Tom's skills with a shaker were lauded by presidential grandfather and great-grandfather George Herbert Walker. Where does this interest in food intersect with academia? Dr. Safar says food became a fascination in childhood during time spent in her grandmother's Harlem kitchen.
She made oxtail. I mean, things we now might think of as sort of soul food, right? Fried chicken. She always had greens. The thing I'm kind of interested in terms of literature is not only the way a sentence or a story is put together, but the cultural and the historical context. I saw how much what anthropologists call foodways, how much that has to do with the creation of Black literature and how Black authors specifically use their knowledge of foodways to sort of construct a Black literary or entrepreneurial civil rights identity.
Next week, the new team at the Foundry presents their first exhibit featuring self-reflection from artists all over the world, plus a book about an unlikely romance during World War II between two supposed enemies. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.